The Arvokians had seen countless civilizations rise and fall. They had cataloged species that thrived on logic, species that thrived on aggression, and species that thrived on selfish cunning. Every world followed predictable patterns. Protect yourself, dominate others, survive at any cost. Cooperation existed, yes, but empathy, genuine concern for another's suffering, that they believed was rare. Then they observed humans. From orbit, the Arvokian analysts studied the planet's cities, villages, and wildlands. They watched as humans interacted, not just within families, but in broader communities. And what they saw confounded every expectation. Children sharing food with strangers, adults risking themselves to help unknown victims of disasters, entire communities coming together, strangers forming bonds in moments of crisis, prioritizing the vulnerable over themselves. Every act, small or large, seemed motivated not by strategy or self-preservation, but by a force the Arvokians had never quantified: empathy. Dr. Caliph, a senior Arvokian observer, clicked his mandibles nervously. They are prioritizing others over themselves. Why? How? This is inefficient, irrational. His assistant, Vera, leaned forward, antennae trembling. It is not inefficiency. It is concern. Genuine concern. They suffer when others suffer, and they act to alleviate that suffering, even at great personal risk. Our models cannot predict this. Video feeds displayed humans in countless situations. A man shielding a stranger from falling debris, a girl sharing her last portion of food with a starving animal, neighbors rescuing each other during floods without hesitation. Each act of empathy seemed to ripple through the community, inspiring more acts, creating chains of kindness that the Arvokians could neither compute nor control. They are cooperating, Caliph murmured. Yes, but it is unlike any species we've seen. This emotional resonance, it strengthens them, yet it makes them unpredictable. Every calculation fails. Vera's mandibles click softly. They do not act out of fear. They do not act out of duty. They act because it is right. They choose to suffer, to help, to protect. And that terrifies me. Calitha's eyes glowed faintly. A species that can extend itself beyond self-interest, that can endure personal hardship to save others. This is not just resilience. This is power. A power we cannot quantify, cannot predict, and cannot contain. The more the Arvokians watched, the more uneasy they became. Humans were fragile in body, slow compared to other species, and yet their capacity for empathy turned every vulnerability into strength. Empathy was not a weakness. It was a force multiplier, a strategy in disguise, and it left even the most calculating aliens astonished. For the first time in their long history of observation, the Arvokians realized that they were not merely cataloging another species. They were witnessing a species whose moral strength made them unpredictable, formidable, and in ways astonishingly superior. Calitha's mandibles clicked sharply. If we thought humans were primitive, limited, or weak, we were wrong. They are not just capable of surviving. They are capable of inspiring, of transforming, of enduring in ways we never imagined. And that is what shocks me most of all. The Arvokians have been observing humans for decades from orbit, cataloging every nuance of their behavior, every pattern of their interactions, and every response to adversity. At first, the analysts assumed what they always assumed. Humans were predictable, self-serving, and limited by their biological fragility. Survival, they thought, would be based purely on self-preservation and cunning. They had seen countless species act this way. But humans, humans were different. The first examples appeared small and almost trivial to an alien eye. A child in a slum shared a small piece of bread with a starving puppy, ignoring her own hunger. On the surface, it was inefficient, even foolish. The Arvokian algorithm flagged it as a statistical anomaly. Why would a species prioritize another being over itself? The observers, Dr. Caliph and Vera, exchanged glances. It should not matter to them, Caliph muttered, antennae twitching. Yet it does. They choose to act. As the observation continued, patterns emerged. A man helped an elderly neighbor carry water from a distant well, pausing multiple times to ensure she was comfortable. Women in markets gave portions of food to children not their own. Strangers assisted those injured in accidents, offering comfort and aid without expectation of return. Every act of kindness created ripples. One rescue inspired another. One shared resource encouraged multiple others to follow suit. Vera clicked her mandibles nervously. This is remarkable. Even the children exhibit awareness of suffering. Their empathy is innate. Our models cannot predict it. It is not transactional. It is not a survival tactic. It is choice. The Arvokians escalated their observation, tracking humans under more extreme conditions. A sudden storm flooded low-lying areas. Humans did not panic individually. Families coordinated to carry children to high ground, while neighbors assisted those trapped by debris. Strangers helped one another cross dangerous waters, and even those too weak to carry supplies guided the effort, offering advice, encouragement, and warning. Each person acted not for self-preservation, but for the collective well-being. Calitha's eyes glowed faintly. They are choosing others over themselves. This is inefficient, illogical. They should focus on survival, on individual gain. Yet they do not. Every act reinforces another. Every risk taken benefits the group. Our calculations fail. Vera leaned closer. It is contagious. Empathy spreads. When one human helps another, it inspires a chain reaction. We have never observed anything like it. Across species, self-interest dominates. Yet humans amplify care. The Arvokians began cataloging larger-scale examples. Communities rebuilt after fires, floods, and storms. Strangers shared food during famine. Villages organized to protect the weakest, children, the elderly, and those with disabilities. Individuals risked injury or death to ensure the safety of others. The Arvokian predictive models failed every time. No algorithm could calculate the efficiency of humans' altruism or the strange power it granted them. One scene, in particular, unsettled the observers. A train derailed on a mountainous track, scattering passengers and cargo. Humans from nearby villages arrived within hours, improvising medical care, clearing debris and rescuing survivors. The injured were prioritized, the trapped assisted, and even animals were not abandoned. Children carried blankets and water. Teenagers helped coordinate efforts, and adults lifted heavy debris without hesitation. Every participant acted as if guided by a single invisible mind, one that valued the collective over the individual. Calith muttered to himself, antennae twitching. They survive disasters not because they're stronger, but because they care. Their empathy organizes them, motivates them, and drives them to action. It is the power, not a weakness. Vera's eyes widened, and it is universal. Every human observed, regardless of age, gender, or status, displays the same capacity. Even under extreme stress, when basic survival is threatened, empathy does not waver. It strengthens. The Arvokians compiled data for weeks, sending continuous reports to their home council. Generals, analysts, and strategists debated the implications. Could a species survive based on empathy alone? Could emotional intelligence be a factor strong enough to make humans unpredictable on a galactic scale? Many scoffed, citing fragility and low physical capabilities. But even the most skeptical could not ignore the overwhelming evidence. A final observation cemented the Arvokians' growing concern. A remote town suffered an earthquake, its buildings collapsing and fires spreading. Humans poured in from surrounding areas, forming human chains to carry supplies, rescue victims, and fight fires with simple tools. Every failure was met with rapid adaptation. Temporary shelters were erected, medical care improvised, and coordination maintained even as personal risk soared. The humans did not act as isolated individuals, but as a collective organism, each person anticipating the needs of another. Calitha's mandibles clicked sharply. Empathy is not weakness. It is strategy, coordination, and resilience combined. The more they suffer, the more they organize, the more effective they become. And the more the Arvokians attempt to quantify it, the more unpredictable they appear. Vera added softly, antennae quivering. We assumed survival depended on self-interest. We assumed empathy was a luxury species could not afford under pressure. We were wrong. Entirely wrong. Humans endure, inspire, and thrive because of it. By the end of Section 1, the Arvokians were no longer mere observers. They were unsettled, their assumptions shattered. Humanity was not only capable of surviving extreme conditions, but doing so through acts of compassion and selflessness. Their empathy had become an unquantifiable force, leaving the aliens stunned, uncertain, and deep down impressed. Caliph concluded in his log, "Humans are fragile in body, yet unbreakable in spirit. They endure not through power or cunning alone, but through their capacity to care, to sacrifice, and to inspire one another. And that is what the galaxy has never seen before." From the observation deck high above the planet, Dr. Caliph and his assistant Vera watched with mix of curiosity and unease. The humans were unpredictable. Previous species, the Arvokians, had studied reacted to threats with instinctive self-preservation. When danger arose, they fled, fought, or hid. But humans seemed to react in a way that confounded every prediction. They protected others before themselves, prioritized strangers over family, and risked life and limb for the sake of compassion. To test this further, the Arvokians introduced control crises. A remote human village nestled between jagged cliffs was selected for observation. Sensor arrays simulated falling rocks, sudden floods, and collapsing structures. The algorithms predicted mass panic and disorganized retreat, standard behavioral patterns observed in countless species. But as the first tremors shook the valley, humans acted with remarkable cohesion. Parents dashed into collapsing homes to rescue neighbors' children. Adolescents relayed messages across treacherous terrain. Elderly villagers guided rescue efforts, pointing out structural weaknesses and hazards. Individuals ignored their own injuries to assist others, improvising with makeshift tools and materials to save lives. Caliph's mandibles clicked in disbelief. They should be fleeing. They should be prioritizing self-preservation. Yet they are aiding others, risking themselves for strangers. Vera adjusted the observation feed, zooming in on a young girl, no older than 10, helping an injured stranger navigate a flooded path. "Even the children understand," she murmured. "Even they act with purpose, with empathy. And every act seems to inspire another. One rescue leads to 10, then 20. It spreads like a contagion." The Arvokians then introduced a more complex challenge, a devastating firestorm across the village outskirts. Heat, smoke, and falling debris should have driven humans to safety, but instead, they coordinated evacuation efforts. Teams formed spontaneously, moving the most vulnerable to safer areas. Children carried water to douse flames. Adults created fire breaks from available materials, and elders guided everyone to relative safety. The Arvokians' models predicted severe casualties, yet the humans minimized loss through collective action driven entirely by empathy. "Look at how they communicate," Caliph said, voice tense. "No external leadership is dictating orders. They act instinctively in concert. Every person considers the well-being of others before themselves." Vera clicked her mandibles nervously. It is unsettling. Every disaster we introduce seems to reinforce their cohesion. Threats do not break them, they strengthen them, and in ways we cannot calculate. A new variable was introduced, the appearance of a mechanical predator at the village edge, designed to simulate a lethal threat. Most species in the galaxy, when confronted with such a creature, respond with fear, hiding, or fleeing. Humans reacted differently. Adults stood their ground, devising improvised methods to protect the vulnerable, while children and teens assisted without hesitation. Families worked together, ensuring that no one was left behind. Caliph's antennae twitched nervously. Even when faced with imminent danger, they prioritized others over self-preservation. Every attempt to provoke fear, panic, or selfish behavior fails. The Arvokians escalated the test further. They simulated a sudden famine, cutting food supplies in half. Standard species would fight, hoard, or succumb to chaos. Humans, however, rationed collectively, shared remaining resources equitably, and even risked travel to assist nearby settlements suffering worse shortages. Empathy became strategy. Selflessness became strength. Vera leaned closer. It's as if empathy is their adaptive mechanism. It's not weakness. It is their resilience. It organizes them, motivates them, gives them purpose, even under extreme stress. In one of the most remarkable sequences, a young human man found himself trapped under rubble while trying to rescue neighbors from a collapsed building. His own survival seemed improbable, and yet another man risked his life to free him, guided by sheer compassion, and together they continued rescuing others. The humans' empathy was infectious, their determination fueled by concern for one another. Calitha's mandibles clicked sharply. They survive because they care. They adapt because they care. They endure because they care. This is impossible to quantify. Every model fails. Even the Arvokians' most sophisticated predictive algorithms faltered. They could not calculate human cooperation driven by empathy. Every scenario, no matter how extreme, was met not with panic or selfishness, but with ingenuity, courage, and unwavering support for others. A council observation session was convened. Generals and analysts from multiple worlds gathered to review the footage. They debated fiercely. Some argued that empathy made humans vulnerable, others that it made them unpredictable. But as the clips played, villages rebuilt after floods, communities organized after firestorms, strangers saving one another in seemingly hopeless situations, the consensus shifted. They are fragile in body, one warlord admitted, but their empathy, it transforms weakness into strength. Every act of compassion multiplies their capacity to endure. They are dangerous in a way we cannot control. Calith recorded conclusion in his log. Humans do not merely survive threats. They amplify their resilience through empathy. They convert suffering into cooperation, danger into unity. Their emotional intelligence is a force multiplier, rendering them unpredictable and in many ways unstoppable. Vera whispered, and Tenny trembling. We assumed empathy would be a vulnerability. Instead, it is their greatest weapon. A species that endures because it cares. No calculation can predict the outcome of that. By the end of the observation cycle, the Arvokians were no longer curious. They were unsettled. The humans had not only survived every test, but they had transformed adversity into opportunity, acting with selflessness that consistently outmatched alien expectations. The Calithians' predecessors, the Varans, the Horithians, none had ever demonstrated this combination of empathy, resilience, and adaptive intelligence. Calith leaned back, mandibles clicking softly in contemplation. We thought we were observing a simple species. What we are witnessing is something extraordinary. They are not just survivors. They are catalysts capable of inspiring and mobilizing themselves and others, even under extreme duress. And that terrifies me. The Calithian Galactic Council convened in their massive chamber, a soaring structure of polished obsidian and gold, where the most powerful alien generals and analysts from dozens of worlds gathered. Screens displayed live feeds of human activity, disasters, crises, and everyday act of kindness. For the first time, the Council could not dismiss a species as predictable, weak, or self-serving. Humanity was different. Dr. Calith, the senior Arvokian observer, opened the session. We have studied humans for decades. They are fragile in body, limited in strength, and yet they survive and adapt in ways that defy every calculation. What you see on the screens is not mere coincidence or luck. It is empathy, and it amplifies their resilience. A Horithian warlord, massive and plated in green chitin, bared his mandibles. Empathy? That is weakness. Every species we've cataloged uses selfishness, aggression, or cunning to survive. Why should humans, this puny species, be any different? They are different, Calith replied sharply. Their empathy is not weakness. It organizes them. It motivates them. It drives them to act collectively under stress. They survive disasters, famine, and attacks not despite empathy, but because of it. A Varan general hissed, wings vibrating. Preposterous. Empathy cannot protect them from predators or starvation. It cannot shield them from disease. They are bound to fail eventually. Calitha's antennae twitched. You underestimate them. We introduced floods, mechanical predators, famine, and fires. Their response was not panic or selfishness. They improvised, coordinated, and saved each other at risk to themselves. Every disaster strengthened them. Every crisis amplified their unity. The chamber grew tense. Analysts whispered. Generals leaned forward, and a few even recoiled. They had studied countless species, but none had ever demonstrated resilience born from altruism rather than aggression. A Quinari strategist click claws on the table. If they respond to suffering with compassion, then traditional methods of control will fail. Starvation, intimidation, forced isolation, none will break them. They will adapt. They will endure. They will rally. Lyra, Calitha's assistant, added, "It is more than endurance. Empathy spreads. One act of selflessness triggers others, creating chains of action that strengthen communities. We cannot predict where it stops. Every intervention we attempt to manipulate or frighten them only teaches them new ways to survive and protect each other." The generals murmured uneasily. The concept was alien. Most species could be coerced, intimidated, or manipulated through fear or force. Humans could not. Their strength lay not in weapons, numbers, or technology, but in moral cohesion and capacity to inspire one another. A Cerati admiral, claws clicking nervously, asked, "Then what do we do?" "We cannot contain them. We cannot predict them. If we escalate, we risk provoking a species that is stronger than it appears, not in combat, but in will." "Yes," Callus said gravely. "Any attempt at domination, any act of aggression, any miscalculation could provoke a response we cannot anticipate. Empathy is not passive. It is active, adaptive, and in humans, a survival mechanism far more effective than force." A silence fell. Screens showed a human village recovering from a flood. Children carried supplies. Adults guided the elderly to safety. Strangers assisted one another without hesitation. Every rescue, every act of kindness was amplified, multiplied, and coordinated. The aliens realized humans were learning from adversity, not just surviving it. The Horithian warlord growled, "So what you're saying is this species, small and fragile, cannot be intimidated, cannot be coerced, cannot be predicted?" Caliph clicked his mandibles. "Exactly. Every previous species we studied was governed by self-interest. Human behavior is governed by empathy. That is not weakness. It is power. It allows them to endure beyond expectation and act in ways no model can anticipate." The council debated fiercely. Some advocated caution, avoid interference, observe, and let humans remain isolated. Others feared even passive observation could provoke humans' empathy-driven resilience into collective action that might challenge galactic norms. Lyra leaned toward Caliph, whispering, "They are not merely survivors. They are catalysts. Each act of compassion strengthens them and inspires others. We cannot calculate the extent of their influence." Caliph nodded grimly. A single crisis could mobilize millions, hundreds of communities acting in synchrony. They coordinate instinctively, improvising solutions under extreme pressure. They endure through empathy, and that terrifies even us. A Varen delegate hissed. "Then what is our strategy? How do we predict them? How do we defend against a species whose strength is kindness?" Calitha's voice was low, almost a murmur, but every delegate heard it. "You cannot fight kindness with force. You cannot intimidate compassion. You cannot control altruism. Every attempt to suppress them only teaches them new ways to endure and protect one another. Humanity is unbreakable, not because of strength, but because of heart." The council fell into stunned silence. For the first time in millennia, a species had demonstrated a form of power that could not be measured, quantified, or contained. Every alien present understood the implications. A species whose resilience was fueled by empathy could not be predicted, controlled, or defeated by conventional means. Caliph concluded, documenting the session. "Humans are fragile in body, yet unbreakable in spirit. Their empathy transforms weakness into strength, suffering into coordination, and vulnerability into unity. They are a force that the galaxy cannot anticipate or contain, and that terrifies every species that underestimates them." As the council adjourned, murmurs continued, and generals left the chamber with uneasy expressions. Humans were no longer just another species to catalog. They were an unquantifiable variable, a moral and strategic anomaly that demanded respect, caution, and perhaps fear. Even from orbit, the humans continued their lives, unaware of the debate unfolding above them. They healed, they helped, they endured. And the galaxy watched, slowly realizing that empathy was their ultimate weapon, and it was terrifyingly effective. Months had passed since the Arvokians and their allies had begun full-scale observation of humanity. The data was staggering. Humans survived floods, earthquakes, firestorms, and even man-made disasters with an uncanny combination of adaptability and compassion. Yet what truly terrified the aliens was the scale at which humans could act collectively driven by empathy, turning individual kindness into coordinated survival. On a remote continent, a massive volcanic eruption forced millions from their homes. Cities crumbled, rivers overflowed, and wildfires spread across the plains. Sensor rays tracked every human movement, expecting chaos, panic, and mass casualties. Instead, the humans moved as one. Families carried the injured to safety. Strangers formed rescue chains, passing supplies, water, and medical aid from hand to hand. Children navigated treacherous terrain to deliver messages or comfort the frightened. Entire communities, previously isolated, spontaneously coordinated their efforts, creating networks of mutual aid that spanned hundreds of kilometers. Dr. Caliph and Lyra watched from the observation deck. Antennae twitched nervously, mandibles clicking with disbelief. "Every calculation has failed," Caliph muttered. "They should be overwhelmed, fractured, and defeated. Yet they thrive." Vera added, "And note how empathy scales. It starts small, one person helps another. But within hours, entire regions are organized, moving with purpose and precision. No species we studied exhibits this." The Arvokian Council convened again, urgency in every movement. Screens displayed real-time footage of human action. The chamber, bathed in golden light, was silent but tense. General strategists and analysts stared in awe as humans transformed disaster into organized relief, chaos into coordinated effort, and danger into communal strength. One particular event left the aliens nearly speechless. A young man had been separated from his village during a flood, trapped on a crumbling bridge. Another human, a complete stranger, risked his life to pull him to safety. Together, they returned to help others, improvising rafts from debris and guiding entire groups of villagers to higher ground. Nearby, children assisted the elderly in carrying essential supplies, and teenagers coordinated efforts across multiple households. Calitha's antennae twitched violently. Even strangers act as if connected by a single mind. Every risk is calculated not for self-preservation, but for the collective. Their empathy creates a network of resilience we cannot model. Lyra's eyes glowed faintly, and it is contagious. Each act inspires another. Each rescue triggers multiple chains of action. The more pressure they face, the stronger and more organized they become. The council debated feverishly. "If we attempt to control them, we risk provoking a response we cannot predict," a Cerati admiral hissed. "If we leave them alone, their empathy allows them to organize, thrive, and potentially dominate on a scale no species could anticipate." A Harithian warlord slammed a clawed fist on the table. "We are dealing with a species that turns selflessness into strength. Every intervention only teaches them to endure more effectively. They are dangerous not by force, but by will." Screens switched to show human-led relief operations across continents. Entire regions coordinated evacuation and aid using rudimentary communications. Communities shared resources equitably, risked lives to save strangers, and rebuilt homes and infrastructure even as disasters continued. The aliens were forced to acknowledge it. Humans' empathy was an adaptive strategy, a form of power, and utterly unpredictable. Caliph clicked his mandibles sharply. This is the first time in our recorded history that a species' strength comes from compassion. They do not fight for conquest or selfish gain. They endure, organize, and inspire one another simply because they care. And it works. It is terrifyingly effective. Lyra added softly, antennae trembling, "Empathy is not passive. It drives action, coordinates communities, and scales across populations. Their ability to endure, adapt, and overcome is amplified by it. No army, no weapon, no strategy can match this." The final proof came when humans encountered a cascading disaster. Floods, fires, and structural collapses simultaneously struck multiple regions. Expectation, mass casualties, breakdown of order, reality. Humans improvised on a planetary scale. Entire populations acted as a synchronized organism, distributing food, rescuing the injured, guiding children, and rebuilding critical infrastructure, all while maintaining communication across vast distances using improvised methods. Generals in the chamber leaned forward, some nearly falling out of their seats, jaws open in shock. The Calithian, Cerati, Harithian, and Varan observers all realized a chilling truth. Humans could not be broken, controlled, or predicted by traditional methods. Their power lay not in weaponry or armor, but in their capacity to care, to act selflessly, and to inspire collective resilience. Caliph finally spoke, his voice low, but carrying across the chamber. We assumed fragility, weakness, predictability. We were wrong. Humanity is unbreakable, not because they are the strongest physically, but because they refuse to surrender their moral and emotional strength. Every challenge only strengthens them. Every disaster teaches them. Every act of compassion fortifies them. Lyra's antennae quivered. They are a species whose heart and will are indistinguishable from their strategy. Empathy itself is their ultimate weapon, and the galaxy cannot predict, contain, or defeat it. A hush fell over the chamber. Generals, warlords, and analysts alike understood the magnitude of what they were witnessing. They had underestimated humanity. Every calculation, every model, every strategy had failed. Humans were not only surviving, they were thriving, adapting, and amplifying their strength through compassion. As humans continued their efforts on the planet below, unaware of the stunned council above, Caliph made the final entry in his report. This species is fragile in body, but unbreakable in spirit. They endure, protect, and inspire through empathy. They are a force beyond prediction, beyond control, and beyond fear. The galaxy has encountered nothing like them before, and that is what terrifies us most of all. And so, the humans demonstrated that true power is not measured in weapons, numbers, or dominance, but in the capacity to care, to act selflessly, and to turn compassion into unyielding strength. For every alien who had doubted them, every observer who had underestimated them, the lesson was clear. Never misjudge humanity, for their heart is their greatest weapon, and it is unstoppable.